She saw the dirt under his fingernails. Before she saw his face, she saw the orange safety vest, faded and worn at the seams, stained with the evidence of honest labor. She saw the steel-toed boots caked with concrete dust.
And then she smiled, not a warm smile, a smile like someone discovering something distasteful. That was the moment everything changed for Victoria Cross. But she didn't know it yet. The Sterling building's main lobby was all glass and marble, a cathedral of wealth where every footstep echoed like a judgment. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows in thick golden columns, illuminating dust particles that seemed to mock the building's perfection. It was the kind of space designed to make ordinary people feel small, and Victoria loved that. Victoria strode through that light like she owned it. In a way, she thought she would soon. She was the CEO of Apex Reality, one of the most aggressive real estate firms in the city. She wore a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, tailored perfectly around her body. Her heels clicked a rhythm of entitlement against the polished floor. Her phone was pressed to her ear, her voice sharp as she barked orders to her terrified assistant. The time was 6:47 a.m. The lobby was nearly empty, just cleaning crew members, a security guard, and one man in a construction vest studying the architectural blueprints on the wall with reverent intensity. That man was Marcus Sterling. He didn't look up when Victoria rounded the corner. He was too focused on the structural details before him, the load-bearing columns, the materials, the way this building sang with intentional design. His 5-year-old daughter, Zara, stood beside him, her small hand clasped firmly in his, her eyes wide with wonder as she tried to understand what her daddy was looking at. "See how these lines work together, baby," Marcus whispered, his voice warm. "This whole building stands because someone thought carefully about every single piece. Everything has a reason." Zara nodded solemnly, her small brow furrowed in concentration as she mimicked her father's intensity. Victoria ended her call abruptly when she spotted them. She slowed her pace, her eyes narrowing as she assessed the man and the child like a predator evaluating prey, a construction worker, clearly here to inspect some damage, and the kid, bringing a child here at 6 in the morning. The negligence, the unprofessionalism. Victoria's lips tightened. She approached with absolute confidence. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the quiet like glass breaking. "This isn't a daycare center. You need to take your daughter somewhere else while you work. This is a place of business." Marcus turned slowly, his face calm and composed. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered from decades of physical work, with hands that looked like they'd built things, but his eyes were gentle, intelligent. "Good morning," he said quietly. "We're just looking at the architecture. Zara loves buildings. She wants to understand how they work." "I don't care what she loves," Victoria snapped, dismissing his words with a wave. She looked at Zara directly, her expression shifting to something pitying. "Does your father understand that children have school, or does he just drag you along to construction sites because he can't afford childcare? It's quite sad, really. A child at this age needs stability, structure, proper supervision. Not this." Zara's grip on Marcus's hand tightened. She didn't cry. She just went quiet in the way children do when they sense cruelty. Marcus's jaw clenched visibly, but his voice remained steady. "She has school at 8:30. We're here for a personal reason, just a few minutes." "A personal reason," Victoria repeated mockingly. She began to circle them slowly, like a predator assessing prey. "Let me guess. You're here to steal copper wiring, maybe brass fixtures. That's what you people usually come here for, isn't it? That's what always happens. You people." Those two words compressed centuries of contempt into a single phrase. "That's not," Marcus began, his voice still remarkably calm. "I don't want to hear it," Victoria interrupted, holding up a hand. She pulled out her phone with dramatic flair, already dialing. "I'm calling security. The last thing this building needs is a criminal in the lobby making people feel unsafe." "There are no other tenants here," Marcus said quietly. "It's 6:47 in the morning." "Yet another reason why you shouldn't be here," Victoria fired back. She spoke into her phone, her voice dropping. "This is Victoria Cross. There's a suspicious person in the main lobby. Construction worker, tall, black man with a child. I need him removed immediately. Tell them he's potentially dangerous. The security guard at the front desk was a young man named David, maybe 25 years old, with kind eyes and a modest salary that barely covered his rent. He'd been working at Sterling Building for 3 years, mostly invisible to the executives who breezed past him. He looked uncomfortable now. His instructions had been vague. He didn't know what to do. "Yes, Ms. Cross, right away," David said uncertainly, standing up from his desk. He didn't want to do this. Something about the man's presence told him this was wrong, but he'd learned long ago that arguing with executives got you fired. Marcus knelt down to Zara's level, his large body folding carefully to bring his face close to hers. He shielded her with his body, placing himself between her and Victoria's presence. "Don't listen to her, okay, baby? Don't let her words stick to you. Some people are just afraid of things they don't understand. That's not your fault. That's not Daddy's fault. That's just how some people are." "Why is she being mean?" Zara asked, her voice small. "Because she doesn't know us yet," Marcus said gently. He kissed the top of her head. "And sometimes people are mean to things they don't know. That's something we have to understand about people. But that doesn't make it right. And it doesn't mean we have to believe what they say about us." Victoria watched this exchange with visible disgust, her nose wrinkling slightly as if the love between father and daughter smelled bad. "How touching," she said, her voice dripping with mockery. "Playing the victim. I'm sure you'll tell everyone how a poor, innocent construction worker was harassed by a big, mean CEO. That's always the story with you people, isn't it? You always play the victim. You always make excuses." Something shifted in Marcus's eyes. Not anger, something colder, something more permanent, something like a decision that wouldn't be unmade. He stood up slowly, bringing Zara with him, and he began walking toward the executive elevator bank at the back of the lobby, the elevators that required security clearance, the elevators reserved for the building's owner and highest-level executives, the elevators that Victoria herself couldn't access without authorization. "Stop right there," Victoria called out. "Those are restricted. David, stop him. Do your job." David hesitated, his hand half extended, his body tensed. The man was walking with such absolute certainty, such unshakable authority, that something in David's instinct told him to stand down. But Victoria's voice cut through doubt like a knife, shrill and demanding. "Now, David, do your job or you're fired." Marcus reached the elevator bank. He placed his hand against the biometric scanner. The light flashed green. A soft beep sounded. The elevator doors slid open with a quiet hiss. Victoria's face went pale. Her mouth opened but no sound came out. That's impossible," she whispered. Marcus stepped into the elevator with Zara. He adjusted his daughter on his hip, making sure she was comfortable. He pressed the button for the 42nd floor, the executive level. The doors began to close slowly, inevitable. Just before they sealed shut, Marcus made eye contact with Victoria one final time. His expression wasn't angry, it was pity. It was the look of someone looking at something broken that could have been fixed but chose not to be. The elevator doors sealed shut with a soft hiss, and Victoria was left standing alone in the lobby, her mind struggling to process what she'd just witnessed. 20 minutes later, Victoria sat in the executive conference room on the 42nd floor. The room was all glass and steel, with a panoramic view of the entire city sprawling beneath them like a conquered territory. She'd insisted on moving the meeting up. She'd changed her outfit, a different suit, but just as expensive. Her confidence had returned, though it sat uneasily on her shoulders. The board of Sterling Enterprises sat across from her, arranged around a long table of dark wood. 12 directors, all dressed in power suits, all watching her with expressions that suggested they were waiting for something. "So," Victoria began, smoothing her jacket, "I assume there was a simple explanation for the incident downstairs. The security breach. The man in the construction vest. Obviously your access control system has been compromised. Obviously someone needs to be fired." The board members exchanged meaningful glances. "What incident?" asked Margaret Chen, the board's oldest member, a woman with silver hair and eyes that had seen decades of human nature. "The construction worker in the lobby. With the child," Clearly a breach of security protocol. Margaret frowned slightly. There are no construction workers scheduled for today. The south wall reinforcement was completed last week. Victoria laughed, but it came out strained. Well, someone should do a security audit. Your systems are clearly compromised. The conference room door opened. Everyone stood. Victoria stood too, preparing her most winning smile. The smile she used on investors and board members, the smile meant to manipulate. She expected a grey-haired man in his 60s. She expected someone like her father, someone from her world. Instead, Marcus walked in. He no longer wore the orange vest. Underneath was a tailored charcoal shirt that revealed the strength in his shoulders, the kind of strength that came from building things, from decades of creating. His jeans were still dusty, but there was something dignified about him now. Zara was on his hip, still holding a juice box. In his other hand was a leather portfolio embossed with the Sterling logo in gold. "Good morning," he said simply, his voice carrying genuine authority. The board stood up. Not polite standing, but the immediate standing of deep respect. Margaret stepped forward. "Mr. Sterling, we weren't expecting you this early." "I decided to come in personally," Marcus said, shaking her hand firmly. "I wanted to be here for this negotiation. Ms. Cross, I wanted to meet the woman interested in my building." The words didn't register properly in Victoria's mind. My building. He'd said my building. You're the construction worker," she stammered. "I was checking the foundation reinforcement on the south wall," Marcus said calmly, sitting at the head of the table with Zara on his lap. He retrieved a coloring book from his portfolio. "Be good for Daddy for a little while, okay, sweetie?" "Okay, Daddy," Zara chirped, settling into the leather chair. Marcus adjusted himself in his seat, completely comfortable, completely in control. "I like to inspect my projects personally. I believe in knowing every detail of what I create. This tower, I built it from the concrete up. Every column, every beam reflects my vision. I spent 3 years on this building. 3 years." He pulled out a document from his portfolio. It showed Marcus Sterling as the architect and primary designer. His name was printed there, Marcus Sterling, architect and owner. Victoria remained standing, her mouth open, her brain performing calculations that kept coming up wrong. "I also take the character of potential partners very seriously," Marcus continued. "This building isn't just a financial asset, it's a legacy, something I'm building for my daughter's future. Someone who disrespects me, someone who makes assumptions about me based on my appearance, someone who would speak to my child the way you did. I don't want that person owning any property of mine." He pulled out another document. Security footage from the lobby, time-stamped, crystal clear, everything. Victoria saw herself on the screen, her face twisted in contempt, heard her own voice saying those things. "You people. Potentially dangerous, criminal, not worth listening to." "This is from our security system," Marcus said. "Professional quality, everything recorded, everything preserved. Do you recognize the person in this footage?" Victoria sat down slowly, like her body had simply given up. "Mr. Sterling," she began, her voice trembling. "I apologize. I had no idea. I was stressed. The meeting, the traffic, my assistant quit last week. You have to understand." "I understand perfectly," Marcus interrupted, his voice like iron. "I understand that you saw a black man in work clothes and immediately assumed the worst. I understand that you felt comfortable calling security on me, comfortable suggesting I was a criminal, because you didn't think I had any power. Power is the only thing that matters to people like you. Without it, I'm disposable." He leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that was impossible to escape. "What I don't understand is why you felt entitled to insult my daughter, why you felt the right to question my parenting, my character, my very presence in a building I own. Why you thought it was acceptable to make those assumptions about a child you'd never met." "I didn't know," Victoria tried. "Exactly," Marcus said. "You didn't know. And yet you felt so certain in your judgment, so confident in your cruelty. That tells me something fundamental about who you are. That tells me what kind of CEO you'd be with access to my property. He stood, calmly, with Zara still on his hip. She was coloring peacefully, unaware of the drama unfolding. "The deal is off," he said simply. "You need to leave. Now. Your company will receive official notification from our legal team." "Wait," Victoria pleaded, standing up so quickly her chair fell backward. "Please, my company has invested everything in this acquisition. My reputation, my credibility, my entire career. If this falls through, I lose everything. Please." "Then you understand loss," Marcus said quietly. "That's good. It will help you understand what it feels like to be dismissed, to be judged, to have your entire worth determined by someone else's prejudice." He walked to the door. The board members parted for him like water. He paused at the threshold, looking back at Victoria with an expression that was somehow worse than anger. It was disappointment. "There's a man named David who works security downstairs," Marcus said. "He's been here for 3 years, showing up on time, mostly invisible to executives like you. You called him by his first name today, like you owned him. You didn't, and he won't forget how you treated him." Victoria's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of rage and loss, not remorse. "My daughter asked me why you were being mean," Marcus continued. "I told her that sometimes people are afraid of what they don't understand, but that was generous. The truth is, you weren't afraid, you were arrogant. You saw someone you thought was beneath you, and it made you feel powerful. It felt good to you to be cruel. That's not fear, that's smallness." He adjusted Zara on his hip. She looked at Victoria with the clarity only children possess, no judgment, no mercy, just pure observation of the facts. "Goodbye, Victoria," Marcus said. "I hope you find a building to buy from someone who doesn't care what kind of person you are, but I suspect you'll have a harder time finding investors once this story gets around." He left, and the silence that followed was absolute. Victoria's company announced her resignation 5 days later. The official statement cited irreconcilable differences in management philosophy. In reality, every major investor pulled their funding when they heard about the incident. Emails spread through the city's real estate circles. Videos circulated. The board of her own company voted to remove her before she could resign. In the age of social media and viral justice, her reputation couldn't survive the optics. But Marcus didn't release the footage himself. He didn't leak the story to the press. He simply let the truth move through the world at its own pace, carried by the people who'd witnessed it, by the board members who couldn't help but talk, by David the security guard who suddenly mattered in a way he never had before. David was promoted 2 weeks later. Better pay, better hours. A letter of commendation from Marcus Sterling himself. 2 weeks after Victoria's resignation, Marcus stood on the observation deck of the Sterling building. The sun was setting, painting the city in shades of amber and rose, the kind of sunset that made you believe in beauty. Zara stood beside him, her small hand in his, her eyes wide with wonder. "Is that our building?" she asked, pointing at a structure under construction 12 blocks away, its steel frame rising against the darkening sky. "That will be," Marcus said, his voice carrying pride and purpose. "We're building it together. The engineering firm, the construction crew, and me. We're going to make something that lasts, and someday you'll understand every decision we made in that building, every choice, every beam, every reason." "Like you showed me on the paper this morning?" Zara asked. "Exactly like that," Marcus said. He kissed the top of her head. She leaned against his leg, completely comfortable in the presence of someone who loved her without condition, someone who'd taught her, by example, that character is built over time, like a building, that your worth isn't determined by what others perceive in a moment of judgment, but by who you are when nobody's watching. Below them, the city hummed with life. Thousands of people, each with their own stories, their own struggles, each one worthy of dignity, each one deserving of kindness. Marcus had learned long ago that you can't change people like Victoria by matching their cruelty with your own. You can only show them, through your actions, through the way you build your life and protect your daughter and maintain your dignity in the face of contempt, that they were wrong about you. True worth isn't measured in square footage or net worth or the respect of people who only respect power. It's measured in the eyes of your child when she looks at you with absolute trust. It's measured in the integrity of the work you leave behind. It's measured in the people you lift up along the way. The Davids, the gentle security guards, the ones the Victorias of the world overlook. Marcus Sterling continued to build, he continued to design, he continued to show up in his work boots, checking foundations, making sure everything was done right, making sure that every building he created would last. And Zara grew up knowing that character and integrity matter, that love is the strongest foundation, that a single father can build an empire and still make time to show his daughter how buildings work. That's the kind of legacy that lasts longer than any skyscraper.